Welcome to Refurbishing a Vintage Model Steamboat, and this is part 24, Damage Repairs. Because of the age of this boat, and it's been sat around for quite a long time, it has sustained some damage. The damage that I'm currently repairing is on a piece of half-round brass that goes round the stern area. It's come apart, it's come away from the side of the boat, and someone's had a go previously at fixing it with adhesive. It was originally soldered in place, but it's given way. So what I'm going to do is fix it once and for all, and in order to do this I'm drilling a hole through the half-round beading and through into the boat. And at this stage of the proceedings the whole thing's getting pretty hot, so I'm currently holding the half-round beading in place with a cloth so I don't burn my fingers. It is of course very important to make sure that the drill doesn't slip and make a horrible mark on the boat. I do a lot of this sort of thing, and I'm very used to this little minicraft drill and where it's going to go, so it is under control. At the beginning of this video you probably noticed that I was using an old ruler between the part that's come away and the hull of the boat, just in case the drill slipped. At the moment I'm going through with a larger drill, and I'm making the hole a little bit bigger so I can put a 10BA bolt through it. But before I do that, I need to coat the area with cyanoacrylate adhesive, and I'm using an awful lot of this. I do not want any dry spots, nor do I want the cyanoacrylate adhesive to run down the hull, so I'm being very careful not to let this happen, but I do need plenty of adhesive on this part. While simultaneously keeping the cloth in place to catch any potential drips, it's time to fit the 10BA bolt. This is a countersunk 10BA bolt, and it's going through to the inside of the hull where I'm currently tightening a nut onto the bolt using a nut spinner, being very careful not to shear it off. And as you can see, this is pulling up the piece of half-round brass beautifully, and I think that once the cyanoacrylate adhesive is cured, this is going nowhere. At the moment though it looks a bit of a mess, because as I said, someone's had a go with adhesive before, so it's now time to clean off all the old paint and the adhesive. I'm using a combination of a craft knife, some coarse sandpaper, and then I will have a go with a sanding drum, because the little bolt is a little bit proud. I didn't bother countersinking the brass because it's quite weak and there's not much there to get a countersink in. So what I'm going to do is clean off the bolt, because it's never ever going to be removed and it'll just become part of the moulding. By the time I use a very small amount of cellulose stopper and a coat of paint with some etch primer before the top coat, this will be quite an invisible repair. If you continue to watch this series, you'll see how it turns out in the end. So here you see me removing paint and debris and old glue, and I'm using my trusty craft knife that spends most of its time either on the floor or on the bench somewhere. The blade's not very sharp, but it's sharp enough for this job. I'm just using it as a scraper, followed of course by some very coarse sandpaper. Been very careful not to touch the hull with the sandpaper. To finish this job off, I'm using a drum sander in the little minicraft drill, because I need to round off the head of the bolt, as you can see me doing here. This way I'll need a minimum of filler. Once again, I'm being very careful with this. I do not want to unnecessarily mark the hull. I only really need this drum sander to shape the bolt to match the half-round brass. The sense of touch is quite amazing really. My thumb can feel more than I can actually see these days. I'm changing the angle of the drum sander all the time because I do not want to wear a flat on this nicely shaped piece of half-round brass. I'm really just attacking the bolt head, and now it's starting to feel quite smooth. Now I'm using an even smaller drum sander to get right into the corners. The smaller the drum sander, the easier it is to manipulate it with the drill. And also this sanding drum is a little bit sharper than the previous one. Yeah, that's feeling really good now. I think I'll live with that for the time being. I'm going to finish the job off with a very small wire brush in the minicraft drill. You've got to be a little bit careful for a couple of reasons when you use these things. One is the fact that it will shed bristles which may hit you in the eye, and the other is, look at all the dust coming off, and we don't really know what this dust is. Some of it could be old solder, some of it could be cyanoacrylate adhesive, but who knows what. Either way, you don't want a wire bristle in your eye and you don't want to breathe in this dust. So some sort of a mask is a good idea, and definitely some protective glasses. I favour an all-over biohazard suit. You can see some more dust coming from somewhere. It's coming from the side of the boat. This model is not perfect. There are one or two areas where the side of the boat does not align perfectly with the beading around the edge. And on this side of the boat it's worse than anywhere else. There's a definite gap. And during the process of milliput reinforcement, some of the milliput oozed out into the gap, which is a good thing. I need to fill the gap anyway. And I will be using some fine stopper before I repaint this part of the boat. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful.